Season 1, Episode 9. My name's Andrew Jones.
And my name's Neil Greggor, and we're back again in your house.
We are around my table, and today our guest is Andrew Stilwell from Bartholomews Agri Food. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Andrew. Morning, Neil.
Welcome to. We'll get to our subject with Andrew in a minute, but first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all our regular listeners. It's I know we usually talk about the one in the US, but it's certainly becoming apparent when I look first thing in the mornings that we've got regular listeners around the country, including North Wales. So welcome to North Wales and other parts around the world. And as I mentioned to you the other day, we had a listener in Hawaii. For the first time the other day, so hello to Hawaii. It's the fun part of doing this is looking on the map. Where the hell are you when it comes up?
Swap, maybe.
I'll go with that. If they'd like to swap, no worries. We'll take a week or two in Hawaii. Yeah. That would be lovely.
We'll do a podcast in Hawaii.
Yeah, that'd be different, wouldn't it? But anyway, so and on other notes, of anybody that follows us on Twitter. I have been trying to get Jeremy Clarkson to come on, but we've had absolutely no response from him in the last 2 months when I've tried. So if anybody would like to start a campaign on Twitter to get Jeremy Clarkson on this podcast, then please feel welcome to give it a try. But
we need him in the southwest, don't we?
Wow, yeah, exactly. I'm sure it'll be good. If not, we'll just have to ask Caleb. But I don't know if that's I don't know if that's an insult to Jeremy, if that would make it work or not.
Yeah, I think both of them would be great.
Oh, of course they would. Of course they would. Because obviously we expect, like most of our listeners, we had a lot of fun watching that. Season 2 just recently. But anyway, on to today's subject. So Andrew Stilwell is our guest. As we've already said, welcome to him. And he is Crop Nutrition Technical Manager with Bartholomews.
I am, yes indeed.
So like usual, Andrew, how did you get to where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
So I started in short trousers in agriculture like the rest of us, and I slowly worked my way up through the agricultural ladder, working on farms, mixed farms, with dairy and with beef. Worked for the local contractor for a bit, then decided to jump the fence across into agronomy.
To the dark side.
To the dark side. No. There's always light on our side. And I did that about 20 years ago. Never looked back, really. Been given a great opportunity where I work, so I work with a wide range of farmers now. For specialist crops in vegetables, in combinable crops and grass and all kinds of livestock systems as well. I just love everything about farming and agriculture, and I'm always happy to get out of bed and go to work in the morning. I'm quite lucky.
So where's your primary area of not expertise, that's the wrong thing. Where do you primarily work then?
Geographically,
that's the word.
So geographically, I work in a little part of West Sussex, a small part of West Sussex. I work mainly in Hampshire, Wiltshire, and up into West Berkshire and Surrey.
It's a fair area.
Yeah, it geographically it's about 5 counties. It sounds vast, but no, it's that's where I go.
Well, yeah, I suppose not too dissimilar to myself in terms of the area that I would sort of cover. I'd probably go a bit further west than you are east, but otherwise fairly similar in terms of where I'd cover, really. So but good. So thank you for coming to us today. So what we're going to talk to Andrew about today was appropriate. We're now March. It's sun shining, fertiliser. Obviously, how to make better and more effective use of your fertiliser with a particular slant on using sulphur. That one I think will be interesting because I was, I'll be honest, I was at a Bart's conference the other day, and a comment came up that I thought was absolutely fascinating regarding sulphur. Obviously, we all know we've had the Clean Air Act. We all know coal-fired power stations have gone or had to improve to not release the sulphur in the air. And let's be honest, as children, or certainly for me, I'm sorry, I'm a bit younger than you two. As a child, for me, it was always going to be acid rain. It was destroying the Black Forest. It was going to kill us all. And yet now that little piece of information was, due to the Clean Air Act, the sulphur levels in the air are now less than pre-industrialisation, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. That effectively in, 50 years, it was 1970, wasn't it, the Clean Air Act, is that right?
I believe something
like that. So let's say the last 50 years, we have turned it around and cleaned it up. So it shows that we can if we put our minds to it, make a difference
Yes.
in terms of what's going on. So, but obviously that lack of sulphur in the air has a big effect as to what's going on with the plant. So I'll hand it over to you to start with, Andrew. Let's get the basics right. I mean, should people be putting fertiliser out as we speak?
So at this moment in time, what I've been saying to people, because I've been asked this question many times.
We're going to concentrate on grassland.
Yeah, on grassland. If you are looking for an early bite, then I would be probably looking at some fertiliser applications of a lowish kind of rate anywhere from now on.
Yeah.
Because under more normal circumstances, if it was a little bit warmer, then we may be going on, may have gone on just a little bit sooner. But without the active growth and without the soil temperature, we're not going to see the fullest benefits of these applications. And then looking towards, depending what you really need to do is work out when you're first, from a cutting point of view, is work out when you want to make your first cut.
Yes.
And then work backwards 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In the units or kilos that you want to apply.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an early bite at the moment, then I would be looking at doing some light applications now. Yes.
I mean, there's certainly, I think certainly what I see on social media, some of the spring grazers are already out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I was with a client yesterday; they were getting ready to start putting some fertiliser out there.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, they said to me, "Well, when should we have the cows out?" I said, "The question should be, why haven't you got the cows out? I mean, if the ground is right."
Yeah.
I don't know, it makes me think rain's going to come sometime, and most people are short of forage. Take that little bit out there at the moment, but
because there has been a
individual
noticeable change in the colour of the grass in the last 10 days. So things are growing, albeit slowly. So you know, it's just to feed that growth and keep it going.
Exactly. And I mean, and from my point of view, I think there's still a lot of for most people, they went into the winter with higher covers than they'd usually have, because we had a great autumn growth period. And really, if they want quality, they need to get that older stuff down, because it's going to affect their first cut silage and etc. They need it, if they haven't already had sheep over it or whatever, they need it down to when it starts growing again to go properly. And what a lot of people, I think, forget, or it's worth remembering, might be a right way to put it, 50% of your grass growth for the year is between now and mid-end of May, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so now's when you're going to make the most of your investment in management. So whether it's fertiliser, whatever it is, that's when you're going to make the most from it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So moving on then, we're looking, fertiliser at the moment is tumbling in price. Let's be honest, it's literally daily or weekly, certainly I'm seeing updates on fertiliser, which I don't think anyone was expecting.
It's an ever-changing picture, as you say, and no, it's very volatile.
Well, it is. Let's be honest, I know I've got clients that brought fertiliser when it was, urea was 800 or whatever it is, and now it's, where is it now? I've forgotten where it is, sub 500, isn't it, as we speak. And, some of them are like, but at the time, it seemed like the right decision, where it was all going up and up and up, and who knows what was happening in Ukraine, and it was the right decision at the time.
That's the thing, and over the years, I've seen volatility like this before, and you sometimes benefit by that decision, and sometimes it's not a benefit. And we're in a situation at the moment where, hindsight being the thing that it is, wonderful. It would, you may well have done something different at the time, but as you say, we haven't got a crystal ball.
No.
So who knows?
Exactly. Something could happen tomorrow that will push it all completely the other way again.
When you have a price hike like that, you end up with a lot of surplus. I mean, do you guys stop buying as much? Or?
No, because it's a traded commodity.
Yeah, you've got to have it.
And it's an ever-moving thing.
Yeah.
So that it's not as simple as turning the tap on and off.
No.
That's what makes it even more difficult to make a good judgment.
Yeah, so I have discussed it with quite a few farmers, and when you speak about the amount of money that you've got to invest, it's not that much in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, it's still as crop inputs go, fertiliser is still the most significant investment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
you can't do without it.
No, you can't. No. You can't grow effective crops without it. No, definitely.
Hey, so we're here today to talk about using that more efficiently and effectively,
Yes.
and particularly using sulphur.
Yes.
So, and from my point of view, sulphur is important.
Yeah.
To put it simply, sulphur is important for a number of the amino acids that a plant makes, particularly some of those essential amino acids. In this country, we particularly historically look at lysine and methionine, and sulphur is required for production of methionine. A vast majority of UK diets are short in methionine.
Okay.
Unless we supplement them, which we can now do, and I am doing with some clients, and you see the benefits for this. But take that, so if you can't produce the amino acids, you can't produce the proteins. If you can't produce the proteins, well, it's just going to sit there. You're not going to get those proteins in the grass silage, which everybody wants, because let's be honest, if you can grow more protein, you don't have to buy so much in. And this last year, that's been the expensive part. And at the moment, wheat's tumbling, soya's quite high, or is high. So again, if we can grow protein, I mean, I've seen some red clover lays 20% crude protein. This last year, people struggled with proteins. Some people say it was simply because people didn't apply the fertiliser. I don't believe that's the case. I think the take-up wasn't there, because a lot of people tell me they're cutting silage and the prills were still just sat there. Yeah. So I think the spring we had last year just wasn't taken up in the way you'd expect. No. So if people want to use their fertiliser more effectively, what do they need to do, and where does sulphur come into it?
So there's a number of points to cover there. It's a multi-stage process. First of all, is trying to ascertain how much sulphur you have or haven't got in your soil to begin with.
Yeah.
So as us as a company, what we do now is we add sulphur analysis to our standard soil samples.
Oh, do you? So instead of the usual Mg, PK and pH, you add sulphur.
We add sulphur as well now. Okay. Because there's a few key characteristics about sulphur which I'll touch on shortly. Without sulphur, you can't get effective nitrogen use efficiency, or NUE. Yeah. Those words, or those initials that you see a lot everywhere in the farming press and all over the place like that. That's a key element of that process. Atmospherically, we are now light on sulphur.
Yeah. I'd say I was really amazed
as you pointed out, and that means that there is some quite easily accessible information on the internet that you can look up. But there was the most recent stuff was a survey. This was part of our conference a couple of weeks ago. So grassland, 84% of the grassland nationally tested in 2021 was deficient in sulphur. So that's a huge amount. Some soils have naturally have a little bit more in them, but the other reason is why they are deficient in sulphur is that sulphur is held less strongly in the soil than nitrate.
Yes, it's quite transfer. Was that the right word?
Or leachable.
Leachable, yeah.
So it's a very, very leachable element. So if the plant doesn't use it while it's there, then it will be lost. It's environmentally benign. It's not an issue environmentally, but it's just not there from a crop nutrition point of view. So establishing your level of sulphur in the soil or in your herbage material is important to begin with.
Yeah.
So once you've established what your levels of sulphur are, then the next stage is to make an amendment or a supplement to the growing crop to keep those levels correct. As you said earlier on, it's essential for amino acid formation. I've just said it's key to NUE, and there are some other detrimental effects as well, particularly to a grass crop. We're specifying on grass today. Yeah. If sulphur is limiting in the plant, then certain enzymes within the plant aren't correctly created. And then what that can do is that can trigger an accumulation of nitrate in the leaves of the grass. And whilst we're thinking that's great, we want to get nitrate in and we want to make the grass grow, but it is undesirable for a number of reasons. First of all, it can reduce the yield potential and the protein of the grass because the nitrate is there, but it's not being utilised for growth or for protein formation.
Flip side of that, of course, you can get nitrate poisoning, can't you?
You can.
And I experienced it when I was in Victoria. There was particularly a weed called cape weed.
Right.
And I remember we had this field with it in, I think it might be a South African weed originally or something, I don't know. Anyway, little sort of, I don't know, it had a yellow flower on it. Anyway.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I didn't want to put the cows in this particular field, but my old man insisted. It was one of those overcast sort of sunny days, just the wrong sort of day. Had a lot of capeweed in there. Oh God, we had vets galore. As soon as you made that phone call, you said, I think we got nitrate poison. Those vets just turned up.
Right.
And I think we lost 10 cows.
Crikey.
And they started at the back, and they just keel over and they look like they're dead. And you put this stuff, methyl blue, in the vein, and it locks up the nitrates, and then they get going. You had some you thought were on death's door, but one we lost, a good cow of mine. She'd managed to keep going all the way up to the yard, and then she collapsed. But because we were at the back, because usually they drift to the back, we didn't get to her in time.
Oh dear.
So just unfortunate. But anyway, so obviously nitrate poisoning can be a problem.
So but with the right level of sulphur there, you get better nitrate conversion and utilage, or usage. If the applied nitrogen to the crop, or nitrogen in the soil without sulphur isn't used properly, again, as with the sulphur, it can be leached away. So that's environmentally not what we're looking for either.
Yeah.
No.
And then high nitrate levels in the grass and low sugars because of lack of sulphur can give you impact on silage quality.
Yeah.
So you can end up with wet, pappy, butyric silage if you're not careful.
And usually, if I remember right, it looks quite. You get sort of that really dark band in the sides. I've seen some that's almost really black.
Oh,
and
right.
that's
almost
because
black. Exactly that.
It's high in nitrate levels because, like you're saying, it's not being used effectively.
We used to find with that increased nitrate in ryegrass in South Africa that our fertility was affected.
It would do that as well.
Yeah. Sorry, carry
So
on.
the
stuff now.
that's why you need the sulphur to help all those conversions of nitrates and other things like that. You also need, as a slight aside, you need magnesium too, because magnesium in there is the element of chlorophyll. It's greenness, it's healthy grass, and healthy herbage in that respect. So that leads to the question: where are we going to get the sulphur from?
Well,
if we've identified deficiency.
I mean, I should point out this. In a previous role, I sold a lot of fertiliser, and let's be blunt about it. Most people didn't buy sulphur. They just brought straight N, whether it was AN or urea, but they brought straight N. There was not a lot of people buying sulphur. If they were, it was more because you're doing like the aftercut, and it had, because of the blend that was being used, it had some sulphur in it. So I've seen it myself. There is not the emphasis maybe on the sulphur purchasing that we should be doing.
So there's two things there really. First of all, cut grass or grazed grass are two of the most responsive crops to sulphur. Because they need it because of their vigorous growth and the other things that we talked about earlier on. The other thing is as well is in a livestock situation, a lot of people are using muck and slurry. And muck and slurry obviously has a sulphur content. And on paper, it looks like a good sulphur content, which it is, but it's not fully or immediately available. The sulphur in slurries and mucks is in an organic form, and like anything organic, it needs to go through a mineralisation process to be available to the crop to use it.
So what sort of time frame?
Well, for effective mineralisation, you need oxygen, you need the right moisture, you need the right soil temperature, and you need the right soil conditions.
So a long piece of string, but 6 weeks?
It's wholly dependent on the season. But going back to your point about the most productive of grass growth being from sort of now till the end of May, I would have said that in general we probably don't reach effective mineralisable conditions until early to mid-May.
This is the job for you, terms of being able to turn that organic
into an available form. It'd more likely be available throughout the late spring and summer months if there's effective moisture, which we all suffered from last year. So, but that is the conditions that you need to make the available sulphur in your muck and slurry be fully utilisable. So in the meantime, what we really need to do is to supplement that sulphur
now. So that's what I was just about to say. So while we was talking about your best return on investment on your nitrogen is now, really to get your best return on your sulphur is now, because then if you've got some muck and slurry, that will kick in going forward, or once you've made that first cut. I suppose again you've still got that a lot of people use it after they've cut the size, but again, they've still got to wait for that mineralisation to happen, but it will. The conditions are more right for it to happen.
Definitely. So I generally recommend to people, I've done for several years now, that the early season applications for grazing and the early season applications for first cut silage are a nitrogen and sulphur containing fertiliser in conjunction, to get the best production out of those. Even where there's muck and slurry applied, obviously you account for the nitrogen, because nitrogen is more available more quickly.
Yes.
You account for that. Top it up with whatever you're going to out of the bag, and then add some sulphur there as well to make all of those things work. So the organic N and the artificial N work to the absolute maximum.
Because the organic sulphur's not going to kick in till
not until
after
at some point later on. That's the thing.
So if I was looking at grass today, what are the telltale signs that you're short of sulphur?
So on the externally, you have a smaller, more emaciated plant. Maybe a little bit narrower in the leaves. If you're looking at a grazing field, compare the wider area to an area around a cowpat, for instance, because a cowpat may well have delivered some sulphur there at some point in time, and you may notice differences there. So that could be a good benchmark. If you're not sure, as I say, go and snip off a bag for the grass, send it off to your local lab, and they'll come back and they'll tell you.
But am I right though, like the yellowing in the leaves?
So there's yellowing in the leaves as well as a sulphur deficiency on most species. And it can be quite a subtle yellowing. It's not like canary yellow. But those are the main symptoms. So, but as I say, if you are in doubt about anything like that, for the small cost that it is, get it sent off to a lab and get it
exactly.
analysed.
I mean, I don't know how much the adding the sulphur to your soil sample costs, but just to do a standard soil sample is about 20 quid, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we add it as part and parcel of our standard offering now, so there's no extra for sulphur.
No. But I mean, from my point, but if let's say someone said to me they want some soil sampling done, it's about, for a standard one, and I'd say I don't know what it's but for MG, pH, P and K, it's about 20 quid.
Yeah, that's right.
And what's 20 quid compared to what else you're doing?
Definitely.
If you can't quantify it, you can't do something about it. You need to know what your baseline is or what's going on today to be able to make effective use of your fertiliser or your feeding or your genetics or whatever it happens to be. You've got to be able to quantify it. And 20 quid, all right, it's easy for me to say I'm not the one spending the money, but even if you did 5 fields, and to be honest, you're under red tractor now. You're supposed to do it every 3-4 years. You're supposed to do each field in the farm, so you've got to do it anyway, and it gives you a base to do it. Because I know I've done that on a farm before. I was expecting to. They previously only soil sampled where the arable was, and then we started a process every 3 years of soil sampling. And actually, I was thinking, they need something. It wasn't. It was some of the grassland needed things to be done to it first because they just hadn't been tested, hadn't been done, and we invested the money there and saw the benefit from it. So that's something to look for. So where's the sulphur come? Is where you were going to go to next. So
the sulphur can be available from several different sources as fertiliser. So traditionally we've had things like ammonium sulphate. Ammonium sulphate has been widely used for years, high delivery of sulphur, but it's available very, very quickly, but its availability is only for a short space of time. And so again, that can have connotations to do with temperature and growth and everything else like that. Next form of sulphur as fertiliser would be kieserite. So kieserite is sulphur and magnesium. Again, a relatively modest dose of kieserite would give you a decent slug of sulphur in a plant available form, and then the next form of sulphur, and the one my own personal preference is in the form of polysulphate. So
I saw a lovely picture of you the other day, Andrew.
Orange.
I did warn you I was going to say it.
Didn't we all look very fancy?
Yes, you looked as comfortable in that as I did. But yes, Andrew and his team went down the polysulphate mine, didn't it? Because explain where it is. And you had to wear all the safety gear to go with it.
So polysulphate is a mined fertiliser.
And counts as organic as well, doesn't it?
And it carries organic certification, and it is mined in the UK in Yorkshire. So we were very lucky to take up a kind offer from
under the
the
North
company.
Sea, isn't it?
It's about 12 kilometres out underneath the North Sea.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's the experience of a lifetime.
Is it?
To go down there, it's just incredible place.
Because you're in shorts and that as well, aren't you?
Yeah, it's because it's 42 degrees at the face.
Wow.
Very, very
Wow.
warm indeed. Because I guess you're getting closer to the centre of the earth. But no, so the
Not much airflow.
So how deep was it?
it's about 1,100 metres down
And 12k.
and about 12k out to the face.
Wow.
Jeez.
So it's a heck of an operation. And the
Do you notice a pressure drop as you go down, as a matter of interest?
no, because you go through a series of airlocks, and that sort of nullifies the pressure, and you don't notice. So it's mined from underneath the North Sea. When you see it on the farm, it is 100% as it leaves the actual. It's 100% usable fertiliser. The rock that they mine is broken down into spreadable granules with no chemical adulteration, nothing added in any way, shape or form. So it is 100% fertiliser. It's from the UK, so proudly British about that. It's got a really good carbon footprint because it's only in Yorkshire, and so that side of it is very, very positive as well. And then the other part about it is the properties of the fertiliser give the sulphur a very slow release characteristic.
Right.
Because you should say it's not just got sulphur in it, has it?
No, so it's got sulphur in there, it's got magnesium in it, it's got calcium in it, and it's got a tiny bit of potash. So as an all-round grass fertiliser, it is very, very useful stuff indeed. So you've got all of the elements there to complement either your organic or your artificial N to get the maximum out of what you're applying. Because the Kieserite is available for probably about 20-25 days. The ammonium sulphate possibly available for maybe 6 to 8 days. This is all things that the listeners can look up on the internet and see the charts on. And then but the polysulphate is available for up to 50 days.
And then I guess that's where we're going to go with this, but you've done some work that shows that using that makes more effective use of nitrogen, because it's got that magnesium you're talking about for the chlorophyll, it's got that sulphur in there, it's got a little bit of calcium in it, all things that help the plant's processing to make better use of the nitrogen.
It's because all of those elements, potassium, calcium, magnesium and sulphur, are key for uptake. So what we've done is we've used it in programs, in trials, and now very, very widely used in a commercial situation as a complement to nitrogen in a program. Or what we do in our plant in Southampton is we will blend them with a nitrogen source. So we blend them with either stabilised or unstabilised urea to create blends that you can apply at each point in the growing cycle, be it grass or cereals, through the year to get an even delivery of all the essential nutrients in the correct balances.
Well, I mean, I know you've got what does you call it? Your all year round blend, is it?
We call it a season long.
Season long blend, sorry. And that is a 34.5 N.
Yeah.
But you've got it as the equivalent of the 40 N without the polysulphate, haven't you? That's the way it's listed.
Yeah, so that 34.5 season long blend would be the same ratio as a traditional 40-14 urea sulphur blend.
But it's again, if I'm getting this right, and please tell me I'm wrong, because it's got the sulphur, the other one's got the sulphur, because it's got the calcium etc in there as well, it's using it more effectively. Definitely. So it's doing as good a job as if you're putting more on. Well, surely it's got to be a good thing that you're using less nitrogen and all of those bits and pieces. The
other key characteristics also with using the polysulphate as a sulphur source is it's chloride free, which a lot of other fertilisers aren't, and it's neutral, so it's not acidic.
Oh, right.
Whereas nitrate fertilisers and a lot of sulphur fertilisers can be acidic.
Yeah.
So
it's got
some other
easy
benefits.
to mine. I mean, I'm still sort of like caught up in this.
The guys that work under the ground earn their money.
Do they?
It is hard work.
In that heat, it would be.
Yeah, in the heat, and it's noisy, it's dusty.
Yeah.
But the
So how long does it take you to get from the top to the face?
when we get to the bottom of the lift shaft, we get onto vehicles and we drive
I wasn't expecting you to walk on it.
No. Because one of the strangest things, you think it will be flat,
Yeah.
but it's not. The roads are all very undulating and things where they followed the seams of minerals over the years, because it's been a mine down there since, I believe, I could be wrong, the 60s.
Right.
Because originally it was a potash mine.
Yeah.
And then they went deeper to find the polyhalite. So where they followed the seams of minerals over the years, it's quite undulating things. It's about a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
20-25 minute drive, something like that.
And the main use is fertiliser.
The only use is
That's
fertiliser,
only use.
and again, the only place you can get polyhalite from in the world is from Yorkshire. There are smaller deposits around the world, little dots here and there, but we're sitting on the biggest one.
I mean, how
incredible.
Yeah.
How what lifespan do they give that mine as it is today?
There's still decades of life left in it. Yeah.
Decades.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's quite. We started researching the material when it first came to the market, probably 6-7 years ago. Very quickly learned, as with others, that we were onto something quite interesting and quite different and quite special, and we've been getting the best out of it ever since. So it's, to my mind, it's a preferred sulphur source in grassland
because it's that longer
because of that
longer
release.
availability,
and because of the other elements, the kindness to the soil, the lack of chloride, so its kindness to the crop, and other more technical aspects as well. Because you only need a relatively moderate application, 100 kilos a hectare, or in old money, what's that, 3/4 of a bag to the acre, something like that, is enough to give you enough sulphur for a cut. Because a cut needs roughly 40 to 50 kilos of sulphur. Again, I'm just cribbing from RB209. Grazing needs about 60 kilos across the season.
Right.
So you might need 30 kilos of supplemental sulphur to get you halfway through your grazing season before Mother Nature takes over and the organic sulphur becomes available and things like that. So it's a really good, decent material to be used judiciously in the right places.
Sure. So if I'm right, what you're saying, really, sulphur is very much a early to mid-season sort of product, and you probably wouldn't put it on after.
I think for
especially
mid to late season
organic, if you've used organic fertiliser.
If for some reason, if you haven't got organics, slurries, mucks, etc. in your grazing paddock rotation or something like that, if you've used it all on the cutting grass or you've used it all on the maize ground, then again, a nitrogen sulphur containing product would, to my mind, be a sensible investment to have in the shed to go through each time.
So if you've got someone's asked me about this today, if you've got a cutting field too far away to be hauling slurry or ineffective, you would be using nitrogen sulphur all through the season. Because if you've used it, let's say after first cut, you've given it a good splash, then come, I don't know, where to time that kicks in, June, July, or whatever, you wouldn't worry about the sulphur so much because you'll have that coming into it.
Again, take it on a field by field basis and by season basis, depending on the weather and things like that. Bearing in mind you need those other factors for successful mineralisation. But that would be a rule of thumb to start with.
But it would be good to test the grass anyway. So even if you put manure on, it might not be having the desired sulphur effect.
Absolutely. Because again, a herbage test is probably 25-30 quid, and that can tell you so much about the things that you need.
And you can solve the problem overnight. Then you can actually give the correct sulphur and get it. Instead of, as you said, with manure that will take.
That's right, exactly. Because again, manure contains so many wonderful trace elements and everything else like that. But we're trying to just supplement that until the manure takes over.
Or just check the effectivity of the
manure.
I mean, we should say, I don't know, it seems to be a lot of people aren't. It's also worth probably checking your slurry for its content. I've seen is it NRM results. And the nitrogen content, it's ranged from, I can't remember what the unit is, but the figures range from something like 2 up to 32, and the average is something like 6. And that's massive range.
So slurry analysis again is an absolutely essential starting point.
Of course.
So slurry and muck, and then so what I do is when I get the slurry analysis back from the farmer, I run it through a piece of software, again, freely available to everybody. It's called Manor MPK. You run it through there, and then that will give you put in your specific lab results, and that will tell you what the availability is to that crop.
Yeah.
Because you define at the beginning how you spread it, how you have or haven't incorporated it, put in your soil type, various other different parameters. It gives you a very accurate guide as to what your slurry application is going to deliver, and then you can work out the rest of your program from there. Whereas you're quite right, if you took it at standard value, sometimes you could be quite a long way out.
Yeah, and then from like you were saying, that it's fairly leachable sulphur, so it's going to be quite difficult to give too much then, or what?
Yeah, I think
too much. I guess it's more just the cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're
I mean, apart
wasting
from the cost,
economically.
Economically, but I mean, from a animal point of view, or environmental point of view, or plant point of view.
Yeah, the thing. I mean, everything has a limit to which you could take.
Yeah.
From a plant point of view, I think. So we work on this thing called nitrogen sulphur ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So if you grassland, if you get to 14 to 1, so 14 N to 1 sulphur, anything beyond that, and you're in deficiency.
Yeah.
So anything but you can build up from 14 to 1. Up to 1 to 1, or something like that. But again, my optimum in my own mind is a little bit like other crops. Somewhere nitrogen sulphur about 3N to 1 sulphur,
right?
Something like that seems to give good utilisation of everything, delivers the quality, stuff like that. It's affordable and isn't detrimental to anything else. So you can apply quite a lot of sulphur.
Right. Yeah. That's what I meant.
But everything reaches a point where.
Sure.
We've all seen the picture of the leaky barrel, and then you get to the point where one where one will be so much that it will stop other things happening.
Yes.
So it's got a limit like everything else, but a nitrogen sulphur ratio that's quite tight. I've not found to be a problem.
Yeah. So the chances of going wrong on that are quite slim.
And as we said earlier on, it's an environmentally benign substance.
Yeah.
So it's not falling foul of any nitrogen or phosphate regulations. So
no. And leaches if it's in excess.
So if people have applied, I guess we probably answered it because we said what's missing if you don't have it. But from the work you've done and that, applying that sulphur, what benefits has that shown?
Well, it's overall fresh rate yield.
Yep.
Improvements in quality.
Yep.
So insoluble quality, sugars,
yep.
Things like that. So you just produce better forage from it. That not work I've done myself, but work I've seen by other people. They've done strip trials where sulphur's been applied to a grazing field, and the animals preferentially graze the grass that's had the sulphur applied to it first before they go back to the other parts of the field. So there are a lot of potential plus points to it, but the other thing is just going back to your point about excess as well. As I said, we can go too much. If you go too much sulphur, like way past if you go to more sulphur than you do nitrogen, you can lock out copper and you can lock out selenium. So that's detrimental to the beasts themselves, let alone the herbage quality. So like everything, it has to be a measured process.
So, exactly. Again, comes back to quantifying it. If you can quantify it, you can
control, measure.
You can. Well, if you quantify it, you can ensure that you don't apply too much, can't you? In the sense of, like you say, you're now as your standard soil test adding sulphur in there. Well, then you know what your baseline is. You know you're not taking a guess and going, oh well, I'll stick this on it. It'll be fine. If the soil's got plenty in there, you don't need to apply it.
No, that's right, exactly. And and again, going back to our blended product that we use and other blends that we do, it's 34.5% N. It's got 14 sulphur in there. Sorry, 12 sulphur in there. So we are roughly on 3 to 1. It's been constructed to that ratio because that again provides optimal uptake and all the other plus points you need for a gramineous crop.
And does it have any spreading issues?
No, so we've had it effectively tested by SCS. They've done that. We've got information ourselves doing it again at our conference over in Wiltshire 3 weeks ago. We had a live spreading demonstration, which you were there to see yourself.
I did.
We proved quite comprehensively that the blends spread evenly. They don't segregate over quite a wide width of application.
As for anyone listening that doesn't know SCS, they effectively test fertiliser spreaders for accuracy and accuracy basically to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah,
no, definitely, and they do that on a national and a regional basis. So but the blends also add the logistical simplification too of you only put one product in the shed. Yeah. So you haven't got to have a stack of sulphur on one side and on the other side.
And you're also only making that one run with a tractor.
Yes. Yeah. So there's other plus points to doing that as well.
Yeah.
So but and then we're always learning. We do a lot of trial work in lots of different crops every year. We're doing a lot of grass work this year, specifically aimed at quality. We're looking at grass varieties and some of their interactions to nitrogen and sulphur and taking it all to a slightly higher technical level than we have done before.
Yeah.
But but every time we do these things, we learn a little bit more and try and refine the job a bit more going forward.
I've got to be honest, that's good, because it's something I hear quite a bit when you hear about agronomists is they're not interested in the grass. They'll walk past the grass, they'll go and look at the wheat, they'll go and look at the maize, or most, let's be honest, livestock farms, dairy farms, they've got that crop of maize. But I hear time and time again, the agronomist, he's only interested in the maize, he's not interested in the grass, he just walks past it. But that really is your most valuable, valuable crop.
And grass, like every other crop, is its own unique set of science and warrants attention.
Sure.
What does clover add to the mix, particularly I'm thinking with the sulphur?
So,
because more people are growing clover because it can reduce your nitrogen use.
So in a clover or a legume situation, sulphur assists nodulation.
Okay.
So if you've got a nitrogen fixing crop, clovers, samfoins, lucernes, other things like that, a moderate dose of sulphur in the early part of the season can help to generate it definitely positive contribution towards nodulation. Yeah. So again, it will help those plants fix their natural nitrogen. So again, where you've got a situation where you've got a well-established grass clover lay, and again at this colder part of the year where you're waiting for things to get going, but you want some early growth, we're not going to go near it with any bag nitrogen, but we could put some sulphur on there, and that will help to contribute with that nodulation process. So and then start to see the other.
Well, I'm guessing also going back to what you're saying, help with production of protein, won't it? Because you need that sulphur for some of those essential amino acids, which are the ones that we, cows, whatever, can't produce ourselves. We've got to be fed them.
Yes.
So before we finish talking about sulphur, is there anything else you want to add on what we've already spoken about, or do you think that we should know about sulphur?
No, I think we covered it quite thoroughly. Really, it's knowing, just to sort of close it off. It's knowing or identifying that you have the deficiency in the first place.
Yeah.
Because in grassland, it's not something that we would normally have looked at in the past. And then picking the right form of release to use to match your particular situation.
Yeah.
So but hopefully after what we've discussed, people will maybe look at it in a slightly different light.
Well, that's all we always hope, isn't it? Is that people, or make people at least think about what they're doing. We don't want to preach and tell people what they should be doing, but if it makes people think about what they're doing, can we do a more effective or a better job than we're doing, then that's all we ever ask for.
Yeah.
Well, as I've got you, I'm going to ask you something else.
Right.
I had warned you.
Yeah, that's all right. That's fine.
Protected urea versus AN.
Okay.
Because obviously at the moment, as you look at markets as they are today, the more cost-effective form of nitrogen is protected urea.
Yeah, economically.
Economically, I'm
yes,
talking now.
Yeah.
To the point that prices closed yesterday for Nitram, but as they were, that Nitram needed to be about £50 a tonne cheaper than what it was for it to be competitive with protected urea. But they're still, when you're talking to people, they still go, oh, but AN, urea doesn't work. go through what the differences are, what the benefits are, what the why it is okay to use protected urea.
So
I suppose we ought to say to some people, protected urea as it stands volatilises or can volatilise
in certain conditions.
in certain conditions. The standard most people talk about is 10%, but I know I've read stuff that shows it can be anywhere between 5 and 50%.
Yeah.
But with protected urea, the urea has a coating. There's several different ones on the market. I know you use one, others use others. And it encapsulates the urea and therefore prevents the volatilisation. So just to give a basic of what protected urea is for some people that might not know. But so then go on to, I guess, my question to you on the differences.
So, technically, we've done work for a number of years now with direct head-to-head trials of stabilised urea against ammonium nitrate.
Yeah.
And with that first premise in mind, is one better than the other, and so on and so forth. And we've done this work now for probably 5 years.
Yep.
We've done it in cereals. We haven't done it in grassland, but we've done it in cereals. And
Are you going to do it in grassland?
this year it will be done in grassland, yes.
Okay.
The results that we've had indicate to me, anyway, that stabilised urea is as technically effective throughout the growing season as ammonium nitrate.
Okay.
That's my results from my work there. So I would confidently use stabilised urea in a situation where for the entire season through. Like last year, throughout that long hot dry spell, we kept making regular applications of it. And if you were going to break the concept last year, it probably would have happened due to the temperatures, but it performed consistently. So I wouldn't have any qualms about using that throughout the entire season.
I mean, certainly I know I've had clients in the past said to me when they've moved from urea to protected urea, they like it because a particular client said to me, she said I don't have to worry about when I apply it now. I don't have to get it perfect. She said it stops me having those sleepless nights of I've applied it and it's just sitting there doing nothing. I know it can just sit there, wait till we get the moisture, and away we go again. And she said it just takes so much out of it. And we should say, because I heard it at your conference, and I've spoken to several people since, and a lot of people aren't aware of this. Supposedly under Red Tractor, but they've deferred it now, haven't they, this year? I'm assuming because of stocks that are already on farm. But moving forward every year, as of the 1st of April, you're not going to be able to apply unprotected urea, are you? So effectively from, let's call it 1st of February, early seasons, but from 1st of February to the end of March, you'll be still allowed to apply urea as it is, unprotected. But moving forward every season under Red Tractor from the 1st of April, everything you apply has to be in a protected, or you prefer stabilised form.
Yeah, in a stabilised, protected. It's potato, sort of thing. But it's the but no, that's right. The legislation will take us down that road eventually.
And is that something that's going to work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's.
I mean, in Germany, it's been like that for a few years, hasn't it? It's been, you're not allowed to sell it unless it's protected.
Yeah, the European nitrate things are far more onerous than ours are.
Yeah, and it's all to do with reducing ammonia emissions and etc.
And nitrates in the water.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's just to I think from the people I've spoken to since that was it 3 weeks or whenever ago it was. There's a lot of people aren't aware of that.
No.
A lot of people are not aware of that on farm. So it's worth getting that message out, whether it's through this or other just talking to people that, well, unless they defer it again. But if that's what they've said, it's supposed to come in this year, but they've deferred it. My guess simply because people have already got stocks on farm. But as of next year, from the 1st of April, you'll only be able to spread protected urea from the 1st of April every year, but pre that you can still use unprotected.
No, that's right. So that legislation will be upon us as you say, at some point.
Yeah.
But from my own opinion and my own experience of it is that technically there's nothing to fix.
There's nothing. You quite happily use.
I quite happily use one or the other. A lot of people's preference is to still use ammonium nitrate because they like it, they know it. But if
exactly, I saw someone yesterday and he said, "Well, I said father's just brought some ammonium nitrate again.
Yeah.
Okay, it's cheap, but he said, oh yeah, but the fertilizer spinner set up. That's just the way it's set up. Job done. Yeah. Don't have to worry.
Yeah.
So, but if you're considering alternatives for whatever reason that you want to. Yes, stabilised urea for me is fine.
It is, and I say at the moment, and you've got to look at us, certainly where ammonium nitrate was as of yesterday, it needed to economically compare with the protected urea market at the moment. It needs to be about 50 quid cheaper than where it is. So who knows? If a new price comes out, they might suddenly do that and it, change the other way.
Yeah.
But as it stands at the moment, that's where it was, and it's just good that from your information, from your point of view, there's no difference in using it.
No.
Yeah. No. Excellent.
I think that probably rounds up where we are at the moment, looking at that. So, I guess any last words from yourself, Andrew? Any words of wisdom we should all know?
Words of wisdom. I think we covered quite thoroughly the subject that we wanted to investigate.
Yeah.
But as ever, any questions or any situations people want to talk about, make contact.
Well, exactly.
That's not a problem for an informal discussion about anything.
And that's what we always say. If anyone wants to, make contact or ask any questions of any of our guests, current or former, then please do get in contact with us because we're quite happy to pass them on. As a reminder, the email for the podcast is simply podcast@ChewintheCud.com. You can follow us on Twitter, which is ChewintheCudPod. Please reply, Jeremy Clarkson. We are waiting. Otherwise, we are on other social media as well. But no, obviously, if we get any, we're more than happy to pass them on to Andrew.
Yeah.
To fill in a bit more information if that's required. But
and thank you for the research you guys are doing. It's vital to our industry.
No problem. We're going to keep on going.
Good.
Yeah.
Which is good. Try and find some more answers.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's all about, though, isn't it? I put it on social media this morning. Another day of learning, and that's
lovely. Yeah.
It is. To me, this podcast it's not just about informing the people listening. It keeps you and I up to date with what's going on as well. Like when we talked about the Jaws Gazoo or whatever it is, it's getting that new information out there. We're learning it just as much as other people are, and it keeps us up to date. So that's another reason why I love doing this. But no, if that's grand, so thank you very much, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, well, thank you for the opportunity.
No, and any last words from you, Neil?
No, excellent. Another excellent talk. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you, Andrew.
No, that's been grand. So, as I say, if you'd like to contact us, please do via email or Twitter or however else you'd like to try and get hold of us. You're more than welcome. Otherwise, I'd like to say thank you very much to you both, and we'll see you next time. So, thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Bye.
And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses or products during this podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Ltd. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Ltd, and the views of Neil Greggor are personal and may not be the views of Master Gen Ltd and any affiliated companies. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.